Hello everyone, welcome to this particular video where we are going to discuss this awesome book called Sapiens. First of all, do I look like a chimpanzee or do you look like a chimpanzee? Doesn't matter. Both chimpanzee and Homo sapiens, human beings, must have had some common ancestor long time back. So you flip the cover, says that I encourage all of us, whatever our beliefs, to question the basic narratives of our world. So you can question different aspect of the book also, and you can have your own opinion, you can agree, you can disagree, but you will end up reading the entire book. This book is divided into 4 parts, written by Yuval Noah Harari. The timeline of history is also given in the contents itself just before the book starts, and it starts from 70,000 years ago when the cognitive revolution happened. So Homo sapiens evolved in East Africa, as we know, that's the cradle of life. Sapiens evolved somewhere around 2 lakhs years ago from current time, and the cognitive revolution happened somewhere around 70,000 years ago. So what happened during this period? It was not only Homo sapiens, as you can see in this picture from Encyclopedia Britannica. So there were 6 other species. There were the Australopithecus, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Homo neanderthals, and sapiens, and other species as well. But the main question here is the Neanderthals, in some of the research, shows that they had a larger size of the brain. So did larger size mean that they were smarter than us? Probably not. It can be debated. But if they had a larger size of brain, if they knew the survival tactics as well, if they were living a good time on Earth, then how is it possible that they do not exist and only Homo sapiens exist? Did we kill them? Or there are other theories? Did they just got extinct? How? What actually happened? That is still debated. And there is Neanderthal genes in a Homo sapien as well. So probably it can also be possible that they lived together as well for some time, and there was even interbreeding, and that is why Neanderthal genes do exist in modern Homo sapiens as well. But did we kill them? That is the question. Then there is a very beautiful thing that is there in the first part itself. So human beings are animals of no significance, but then we are a group of storytelling beings who can convince other. We can convince in masses. A chimpanzee cannot convince everybody else that okay, you all fight for me and you all will get bananas. Or a chimpanzee will not be able to convince everybody else, and a mass population pass down the information generation after generation, but a human being can do that. Human beings know language, they have the thinking capacity, communication capacity, and also to hand down that communication capacity from one generation to another generation. So that is the cognitive revolution that had happened. And after that, the biggest fraud of human history, which the author says in the second part, the agricultural revolution. So after the language revolution, the cognitive revolution, happened the agricultural revolution. And the author says that the biggest fraud of history is agricultural revolution. History writers were very few, history doers were very few, and what the rest of the people were doing, the rest of the people were farming. He says we did not domesticate wheat, it domesticated us. So wheat actually domesticated human beings. Telling effective story is not easy. Telling effective stories is not easy. The difficulty lies not in telling the story, but in convincing everyone else to believe it. So human beings has the ability to convince everybody else that this particular story is true. The author at times says that religion is, for example, one such story with this book. This book has a broad perspective of thinking. So many areas has been touched, right from the Taj Mahal in India to the tea in India, and what it has to do with British and women and men dominating the world. Is women more capable of surviving poverty? So should women have been more powerful? To every other aspect has been touched in this book. So reading ahead, Much of history revolves around this question: how does one convince millions of people to believe particular stories about gods or nations or limited liability companies? Yet, when it succeeds, it gives sapiens immense power because it enables millions of strangers to cooperate and work towards common goals. Just try to imagine how difficult it would have been to create states or churches or legal systems if we could speak only about things that really exist, such as rivers, trees, lions. So what human beings has the ability is the human beings have the ability to convince others of stories which may exist or which may not exist. So even if a story does not exist, even if something is a myth, not truth can also be, everybody may believe on it. So that is the power of human beings. I would like to read from another line here, that even today, with all our advanced technologies, more than 90% of the calories that feed humanity comes from the handful of plants that our ancestors domesticated between 9500 and 3500 BC. Wheat, rice, maize, called corn in the US, potatoes, millets, and barley. No noteworthy plant or animal has been domesticated in the last 2000 years. If our minds are those of hunter-gatherers, our cuisine is that of ancient farmers. In the last 2000 years, we have not discovered any new crop. 90% of the crop that we are still consuming, wheat, rice, barley, corn, all these were since long back. ये तो हमारे ancestors ने ही किया था. If we have the minds of hunter-gatherers, we have the cuisine of ancient farmers, and that's how we are living. We are not discovering anything new in the last 2000 years, which cannot be denied. So that's about agriculture, which is the biggest fraud. The pursuit of an easier life resulted in much hardship, and not for the last time. It happens to us today. There are no as such evidence that the hunter-gatherers were not happy and the farmers are now happy, or we now, whatever lives we are living, so that is easier than the life of a hunter-gatherers. Of course, it is very difficult from what we already have and what we already have established and what we are living to look back and try to imagine a different life. Of course, it's very difficult. So this is the next part. This is the next part that deals with agriculture. That is the biggest fraud. Also, it has been said that building pyramids, nothing else is left, but the pyramids are still there. And also, probably those who were building the pyramids were the well-off to-do people, because they had every basic needs satisfied, because they had agriculture and they had extra food. So what they do now? So they were doing the pyramids. They were making the pyramids. And there was memory overload, because this information they could even give in writing, and they could share information by writing, and that is why there was memory overload, and that is why in the end there is no justice in history. Everybody connects with money. Money is one unification. Everybody may not connect with different religion. Everybody may not connect with different visions, but everybody will connect with one thing, that is money. So initially there was the barter system, but there were problems with the barter system as well, as people have to find double coincidence of one. If somebody wants to sell onions, they have to find somebody who needs onions, and in return of onions, if they want, say, tomatoes, they have to find somebody who is selling tomatoes. Or they have to know random items as a medium of exchange, and what are the market prices going on. All these rates has to be known to them. Only then they will be able to exchange properly. This chapter questions even democracy as well. That okay, fine, democracy is helping people get out of poverty, for example, but it is also taking tax. People are paying a part of their money to the state. So why will somebody give their income to the state? So it is like another kind of a trade again, that okay, the state is taking responsibility of the people. So even democracy has been questioned with tax. Then the fourth part, the last part, is the scientific revolution, which started only 500 years ago, and how there is capitalism, there is a marriage of science and empire, and how we have attained a state of permanent revolution? And even after all these things, will we live happily ever after? Will the Homo sapiens live happily ever after? If there is there any guarantee for that? People will bath regularly, and there are some traditions or some rules and regulations they have set up. But then again, the dog and the cat is not bathing on a daily basis, but still people have no problem to hug their pets or hug their dogs and cats, and they're okay with it. So they are not sure what they want. This is the end of Homo sapiens, and afterwards, probably what they become, what they want, they do not know. They do not even know what they want to want. The book is divided into 4 parts. Part 1 is how language came into picture, and then we learn the storytelling abilities to convince everybody that this is a true story of things that exist in reality or does not exist in reality. Then happened the biggest fraud of history, that is the agricultural revolution. And history doers were very few people were doing history, but the rest of the other people were doing farming. And then the third chapter, which says unification of humankind, everybody started connecting with money at least. And there was the law of religion. And now human beings, they want to become God, they want to become masters. And then the fourth is the scientific revolution, and we might end up creating robots and superhumans, and we might stop believing totally that there is a supreme power, and or some people will end up thinking that they themselves are God. That can probably happen.